Okay, to quickly set up some ground rules before we begin, since things are a bit complicated now due to the writers and actors strike, the movie needs to have a US theatrical release in 2024 to be considered for this list. This unfortunately means films like Poor Things and The Zone of Interest, which were technically released in December of 2023, but didn't get wide releases until 2024, won't be on this list, although they easily would have made it on if I'd got the chance to watch them in the year they came out. That's happening again this year with a bunch of A24 movies because A24 specifically hates me. A movie called Sing Sing, which got its theatrical release in mid-2024, still does not have a streaming release date or even a PVOD, which is insanely disappointing. I don't understand why they're like this. And then films like The Brutalist, Queer, and technically Nickel Boys is not A24, but I'm still counting it. They all got limited theatrical releases in December of this year, which means they're also gonna miss my list for next year, which sucks because, I never got a chance to watch these movies. Although one highly anticipated movie that I'm looking forward to, No Other Land, is a movie I might make an exception for because it's not hit any theaters whatsoever except for film festivals. Either way, I'm saying all of this because I don't go to film festivals whatsoever, mainly due to me being broke. So keep that in mind if you think I'm missing a movie that you enjoyed, because it could be because I've just completely missed it altogether. Although you could always check my letterbox to check on my opinions. I guess I'm shouting out my letterbox. Anyways, enough wasting time. Let's go ahead and get this list started. There were so many banger movies this year, and I decided to extend the list to 15 movies since I already made it a bit of an inside joke with myself to talk about 13 movies per year and then act like it was 10 movies, for that exact same reason, because there's just so many good movies every year. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. The first movie I'm starting off with is this movie that hit deep into my soul as a YouTuber who's been inconsistently making content since they were a little kid. Luckily, some of these videos do not exist on the internet, thank God. But unfortunately, I also do have a lot of videos from like my cringy era, aka my Call of Duty or Overwatch days. I look back at it, it's cringe, right? But like a lot of the moments that I have regarding this is something that I can easily resonate with in the movie. Because this coming of age movie is about that. It's just so realistic, especially with how it ends in a way that is not completely satisfying, but just real. Like that's just how life is sometimes. Your ambitious career goes absolutely nowhere because you're just a kid. Your friendships end and never recover, etc. Like this movie hits every level of being a kid on the internet in the 2000s perfectly, and my cringy past on the internet is proof of that, I guess. I don't know. I will be talking more in depth about this movie in a future video, but just know it's an adorable animated movie about a cat that goes on this odyssey with a bunch of other animals as the world around them completely falls apart. It's riveting with so many intense sequences and the way that the characters are written, even though there's zero dialogue. I'll have a lot more to say about this later, but yeah, there's absolutely great experience and just stunning to look at. This movie really just snuck up on me with how deviously simplistic it seems when you first watch it. Most of the movie is this guy who works as a janitor who cleans toilets for a living, and we don't really know anything about him. But as the movie continues, things seem to unravel and we get a closer look to who he is as a person, what his motivations are, why he's living the way he's living, and it all culminates into this ending that just hits you right in the gut. I've already talked about this movie, but I really enjoyed how it utilized its time period in a way that pays homage to it without exploiting it or glamorizing it. It presents the period as dark and grimy as it probably was. Also, great lesbian romance portrayed by Kristen Stewart and Katie M. O'Brien, and there's also a fun crime drama plot added to it that is excellently written and is presented with intriguing cinematography and coloring. This movie is fucking disturbing, and I love how it pushed the line without even showing that much to begin with. The movie implies a lot, and when you decide to just think upon what you've just witnessed, it gives you genuine chills. It's hard for a movie to do that, especially as a courtroom drama, but I think a lot of that comes from the great writing and the way that it was shot. The way it utilizes coloring is just so distinct, and it hits perfectly in this one scene where the main character's face is just completely red, and knowing the context, you understand why it's disturbing as hell. Like I said, a perfect example of how you can make the most disturbing movie of the year without shock. I love the message that is portrayed in this film and how twisted it ends up getting in the end. Sebastian Stan proves to be one of the most interesting actors with the roles he ends up taking, because this is his most intriguing one yet. This movie is just epic in every way possible. The sound design to the faraway shots showing the grand scope of it all, to Timothée Chalamet's portrayal of this character being impactful due to his theaterness and this performance. It's just great to watch in real time. This ambitious franchise hits spectacularly, from its immersive world building to its grandiose visuals. Another one I've talked about, so I'll make this one quick. This adds such a distinct personality to it that shines so bright with its creative imagery and witty writing. Julio Torres is able to create such a fantastical film about the journey of an immigrant trying to live the outdated American dream. How does Bill Skarsgård do it? The second time he's perfectly portrayed an iconic horror villain. The way he speaks is just so haunting. And aside from that, this movie greatly understands what made Nosferatu work and used its visuals to its advantage. I love the way this movie is colored, and it should be just too dark, but it's just not somehow. They make it work. I don't even know how that's possible. I think it's because I watched it in Dolby Cinema and it just happened to look really good. But who knows, I might have to just watch it again. Either way, it was great. The acting was dynamic all throughout. Every actor had to be more and more unhinged, and it seems like Edgar's is just really good at doing that. So yeah. It's just such a wild and enjoyable experience involving fun characters and a story that goes in all different directions. The way it ends is brutal, but it makes the movie feel grounded in a way. It's just chaotic and perfectly written. This ended up being one of the movies that my friends seemed to obsess over. I thought that would have been challengers, to be honest, but I'll take the substance because it is a movie you want to experience with others. It just doesn't feel real, and you need someone else to confirm that it somehow was. Because yeah, this movie is bonkers wild, and it doesn't slow down for anyone. It's unrelenting and just in your face with everything, but it works so well because of the fun ideas presented throughout the movie. It has great body horror and practical effects that just truly wow me. The message it has is presented in an exaggerated fashion that perfectly makes sense, and it's just representative of the body standards in this industry. I saw the TV glow. I've also talked about this movie. I'm just gonna link all the videos that these movies show up in, so you understand why I'm saying this a lot. Anyways, this movie is stunning to look at and reaches into my brain to hit all the nostalgia in the right way. It presents it in this way that commentates on how we cope off of nostalgia, and it also has explicit trans imagery, which makes me question myself. I still need to do a whole video on this movie, but overall the movie is heartbreaking, and it's one of those movies that hits in a special way if you resonate with it. Waiting. This movie has such an amazing aesthetic with the way it utilizes its spaces to creep you out, You know, I think it's beautifully shot and it's just so consistent with how it presents itself. Nicolas Cage gives such an insane performance, and whether or not you're able to take it seriously, you'll absolutely never forget it. I know people are iffy about the story, but I really enjoyed how it unravels itself and gives you a twist that isn't presented as something that's supposed to trick the audience, as the movie does that in other ways, visually speaking. There's so many little details that I obsess over about this movie, and it just speaks to my soul, horror-wise. Guess what? I've also talked about this one too. This is an animated movie that features some of the best visuals of the year, with the animation just being so consistently great, with so much attention to detail, with all these Antho characters having so much distinct characteristics that make them so memorable, even with how simplistic it seems. This movie also has zero dialogue, yet you'll be able to understand everything that's happening in this movie because of the expressions and the animated characters. It's just such a great movie that features a bittersweet ending that will tear into your heart. Now it's time for honorable mentions. Look Back. A fun little short movie, you know, it's less than an hour, about a couple of friends who come together to make manga, and it's so cute and wholesome until it's not. Monkey Man. Dev Patel injured himself multiple times in this movie, and that dedication really shows in how insane these fight scenes are. Rebel Ridge. An absolute fun-ass thriller that commentates on specific issues that needed to be commentated on, that's for damn sure. Baby Girl. It bends the power dynamics of sexual situations so goddamn much that it's genuinely terrifying how it doesn't break. Memoir of a Snail. Stop motion animation with dark humor and a gothic aesthetic. Duh, it has to be mentioned. Mars Express. This is a cool sci-fi flick that gets straight to the point and doesn't confuse the audience with the many concepts that it throws at you. Also, robot sex is real? Saturday Night. I really like this ensemble and what they're able to do in this movie. They juggle a lot, and they seem to keep the movie as together as possible, which, you know, although may not be very much accurate, is very much impressive. The Wild Robot. I'll have more to say about this soon, but it's a very wholesome adventure with a robot and her kid in a violent nature. It's such a fun take on the slasher genre that surprisingly hasn't been overdone yet. Also really funny to be talking about this movie after I just talked about The Wild Robot. The Apprentice. Yeah, I'm just not gonna touch this one. It's really fucking good, but fuck. Smile 2. Just as fun, but somehow more insane than the first movie. I don't know how they turned what should have been a fluke into a riveting sequel. A complete unknown. Timothy Chalamet was knighted by Lil B. You also can really sing the hell out of these Bob Dylan songs. Conclave. Somehow made it interesting to watch old people argue, and actually has some of the best cinematography all year. La Chimera. I feel like they made this plot specifically so they can take advantage of the Italian scenery. And it works. Hundreds of Beavers. It's just so silly and goofy and wacky and nutty and furry. A real pain. This was just a therapy session with some confrontational and gut-wrenching scenes that will probably make you forget that this is a buddy comedy that stars Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. And before I get to my number one, I want to quickly mention these movies because, like I said, these would have easily made the list if it wasn't for the fucking December release dates. The Zone of Interest and Poor Things, both movies that I feel like are very great for separate reasons. But obviously, I'm not going to talk about it because I can't. So, I guess it's time to move on to my number one. You wish you never, ever met her at all. Of course, I have to end the video off with talking about how much I love Challengers. It has perfect sound design that hits so much harder when in the theater, insanely great performances that are defined with a dynamic writing that explores power dynamics and relationships. It's just so engaging to watch these people in conversations that are portrayed in the same way that tennis matches are portrayed, and it adds this intensity unlike any other movie that I've seen this year. The soundtrack perfectly adds to it, creating this atmosphere that makes this movie just so addicting to watch. And like I said, since I've talked about this before, you can watch me talk about it for a longer period of time on that video.